Let's talk about your speech outline. It's not just what you submit to get a grade. It actually helps you build and construct your speech so that way you can deliver it for the maximum impact and truly connect with your audience. We want to talk about the preparation outline or your full sentence outline. This is going to be a very robust thing. Don't be intimidated by it. We're going to talk about your speaking outline. Because we want to have extemporaneous speaking style, this is going to be very important. And we're going to talk about a few guidelines to follow in the creation of your outline. The preparation outline or your full sentence outline. This is the one that looks intimidating because you're using full sentences. You're completing ideas. And the fact that you're completing ideas is very important. That, in fact, is the most important part of your full sentence outline. I have students that oftentimes like to submit just their keyword outline, which unfortunately isn't truly their keyword outline. It was just them gathering their ideas and beginning the outline of their full sentence outline. Let me explain some of the differences. But first, let's realize that you need to state the purpose of your speech in your outline. You need to identify central ideas. You need to have the justification for your audience. You need to have your credibility. All that is captured in your introduction. You need to have your preview. You need to have the body of your speech, and you have to have that conclusion. Now, this just seems like work for a lot of students, but it's truly not. Because what you're doing with your full sentence outline is you're actually beginning to compile all your thoughts, complete thoughts, into an organized format that you're going to utilize throughout your speech. So in this case, a Word document works great, but if you're going to write this out by hand, leave spaces between points, and I'll explain why. In your full sentence outline, you're going to begin by labeling your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. And then you're going to label the elements of each. And then you're going to take those and you're going to expand them into full sentences. Now, in your preview, perhaps when you begin your full sentence outline, you're going to have 5 things you want to talk about. And then when you get to the body of it, you're going to start expanding on it. You're going to start drawing in sources. You're going to start citing. You're going to start evaluating it. And at this point, as you're creating complete thoughts in there, you can then begin to move things around. You can begin to discard things. If you don't have a complete thought, it's hard to tell if you're going to discard something or not. So you're going to actually build the base of your knowledge through your full sentence outline. So you might have 4, maybe 5 things that you're going to list initially, but you only want to present with 3 because that's all the time you have. So as you're completing the thoughts, perhaps you're talking about baking a pie. You're going to talk about the history, you're going to talk about going to the store, you're going to talk about gathering the materials, you're going to talk about preparing the surfaces, preheating the stove, and you're going to talk about baking and then preparing and serving the pie. That's a lot of stuff to cover. However, as you're going along, you start to realize my gathering ingredients and shopping can actually go into one section. I don't have to have them separated, so then you're able to combine them. And perhaps you don't really need to talk about serving the pie, so you can X that out and drop it. Only way you're going to see these items is if you're able to visually see them. And then read through it and say, oh, as I'm reading through my full sentence outline, I see these belong together. I see this can be tossed. I see this is the logical flow of things. That's where the true benefit of your full sentence outline comes. You want to state your main points, your subpoints in full sentences. You don't want to have incomplete thoughts. You're not going to be memorizing your speeches. You're going to be speaking extemporaneously. But in your full sentence outline, you do want to have the full sentences there because it helps your brain retain some of them. You want to label your transitions. You want to have your internal summaries and your internal previews in there, not only based on required in the rubric, but as well as you want to make sure that you have those elements so that way, as you're building the roadmap for your fellow students, for your audience, they're able to see where you're going. You want to attach your reference page. Why? You're a college student. You do not want to have trouble with plagiarizing someone because you forgot to cite it. And by getting in the practice of having the reference page and having those in-text citations, you avoid getting into trouble. Plus, your audience might be thrilled with what you've shared with them, and they want to know where they can learn more. Your references is a good starting point for them. And then give your speech a title, give it a character, make it so that you feel connected with it. That is going to help you feel enthused about your speech, and that will come through in your presentation. Here's an example. This is a very simple format to follow. And as you can see in the introduction, they clearly state everything. So that way, it's easy for you to follow when you're going to make your keyword outline, but it also makes it easy to grade, which increases what? Your final grade on the project. So absolutely, this is one method. I'm not saying this is a method you have to utilize. In my classes, I like giving 4 examples of outlines. So that way you can find the one that works for you. Feel free to modify it. Feel free to make it your own, because we're developing your presentation style, not duplicating mine. Here in the body, you can see, once again, they follow through full sentences where it's easy to grade, it's easy to follow, it's easy to understand. Speaking outlines is going to be the next thing you need to cover. The speaking outline is those things that will cue your memory. So that way you don't have to go up there with a 5-page written outline. In this class, probably 2-page, but still, pages are clunky. They're distracting. They're difficult. So what you want to do is make it so you have a speaking outline with those memory prompts that you can utilize to present with. Now realize, because you're speaking extemporaneously, if you give the same speech 5 times, it's not going to be the same 5 times. It's going to change. You're going to modify it in your mind a couple times. That's okay. Your audience, your professor, your instructor, none of them are in the back going, oh, well, that's not exactly what they wrote. We're not memorizing speeches. We want to be conversational. So it needs to follow the same framework as you've outlined in your full sentence outline. But rather than having full sentences, you just have those cues. There are some important things about it. Make sure it's legible. So many times students get up there and they're going through, they have their note cards in their hand, and they can't read their own writing. You can use note cards. If you do, write legibly. Or many people have now moved on to using cell phones. And you can absolutely use those. But don't have your full sentence outline on there, just the key word outline. And practice with whichever you're going to utilize. Keep your outline as brief as possible. You don't want to go up there with a stack of note cards like that. You don't want your cell phone to have 20 pages, because that's not speaking extemporaneously, that's reading from a script, and that's not what you want to do. So just have those important cues and prompts in there that can include not only what you're speaking about, but reminders. Perhaps you have a habit that you do not want to present with. Perhaps it's a simple thing like, oh, eye contact. I need to have that eye contact. Maybe when you're standing up, you need to address another side of the audience. Talk to more people. Look for the friendly faces. All those are delivery cues that will help you present better. Perhaps it's speak with wide arms. Perhaps it's as simple as don't play with your watch. Don't play with your hair. So you can absolutely work those in there. The only time in your speaking outline you want to have complete and full sentences is when you are looking at statistics. You're citing a source or you're quoting someone. In all those situations, go ahead and write that out. And remember, in this class, know your speech. Know it. Don't memorize it. You're coming up there. You've developed credibility. You're speaking of something you care about, something you know. And that means that you can share your information rather than just memorizing it and reading it to them. This will make it more lively. You'll have energy in your voice. You will have a spark. Many of us are not professional voice actors where, hey, you hand them a script and they can bring it to life. No, our energy oftentimes comes from our passion and our knowledge of a topic. So know your speech. Don't memorize it. What we want to talk about is your full sentence outline, your speaking outline, and simple guidelines such as know your speech. Don't memorize it. Again, if you have questions, shoot them to me on D2L. Send me an email message. I will get back with you. Remember, your outline is not just labor. It is actually the structure that will support your speech and help you to connect to your audience.